are submitted to your grant management specialist via email for initial approval prior to DIF submission. And now some updates on FY26 continuation. We know everyone's been eager and excited for the rollout of FY26 continuation agreements. We were very hopeful for continuation agreements to be live in CitySpan, but there's a lot of technical updates that are taking place. So we are working closely with CitySpan to ensure that the rollout will be timely and shortly, but we can thankfully let you know that you will have majority of the summer to complete your grant agreement, which you will be completing in supported by your grants management specialist. So just please note, you'll see the cycle populate. It'll say FY25-26. That's the way it's listed in CitySpan, even though we'll be entering fiscal year 2026. So additional official notifications will be forthcoming via email, including a tip sheet, fact sheet, support the completion process, as there are numerous updates that we want to make sure that you are aware of so you can navigate the process successfully. And of course, your grant agreements will be completed in the grants management system, which is 2024.cityspan.com.
I looked at the article the other day about, and
just as some updates, program description, grantees will be required to complete a description of program services with a max of 250 characters, which will be utilized for public reporting purposes, including the My Out of School Time DC portal. So the information you include in this program description will then populate into the portal to provide parents, guardians, and the public at large a kind of general overview of what does your program offer, as well as utilize for important annual reports and other public reporting purposes that reflect your hard work as an out-of-school time office partner and grantee. In addition, program sites, there will be new features to allow you to input the proposed numbers of days, weeks, hour, and service, and distinguish between program periods for year-round grantees. So you'll be able to specify the dosage for school year, the summer, as well as differentiate between the proposed numbers of youth to be served between each program period. So you'll be able to specify the number of unduplicated youth to be served at the site level, as well as specify the number of youth that will be served during your school year program and your summer program.
Reference that.
Another update is, and this is specifically for MADC grantees. You will, for those receiving a My After School DC grant, you will need to upload your statement of commitment form for your partner schools or CBOs that you might be working with, and the organization uploads, and verify program partnership within the program site section, including that statement of commitment form.
Violence, fighting, different.
Some exciting updates we do want to inform you all about is that there are going to be some changes in FY26. One will be a shift in survey requirements. Grantees will be required to administer an OST Office determined survey, SAOI or other, only once at the conclusion of the grant. So just notifying everyone that there will be a shift in SAOI requirements. And this is an update after a lot of discussion with grant partners to be amenable to youth needs, to understand that we recognize the surveys can be, a lot for facilitation, as well as for the young people primarily who might have taken these surveys year after year. And we want to be conducive to their needs and probably glean the most informative information. So we are going to reduce the frequency of survey facilitation, and those details will be included in your grant agreement. So I see some round of applause there. I see folks are happy. So we hope that is a very positive update to look forward to for FY26. As far as the special populations training, just notice an update as we are looking to prioritize the needs of special populations and vulnerable youth. There will be a requirement of an additional special populations training to be completed by grantee program staff by the end of the grant period. So this past year, we had only one required. There will be two, but we can't reiterate enough the value of professional learning and development for those who have participated in the Institute for Youth Development's trainings. These trainings have a wealth of knowledge from seasoned veteran educators and youth development workers who specialize also in special needs and as special populations. They can range from youth with IEPs to cognitive or physical disabilities, LGBTQIA youth, English language learners, trauma-informed practices, amongst other categories. So just please make sure you review your grant agreement in full when you're working on with your grants management specialist so you understand various updates. And last, just everyone is aware that we've discussed previously, DC Metropolitan Department of Police clearances are no longer required, and they will no longer be required in FY26. For those who know, FBI and NSO are still required, and they are included within the DCHR clearance process, which is subsidized by our office. In addition, DCPS clearances do include those required clearances. For anyone's reference, if you have any questions, of course, you can certainly follow up with backgroundcheck.learn24@dc.gov or your grants management specialist who can help clarify and support you in any background check related needs. And with that said, I'm going to pass the baton to my esteemed colleague, Ms. Camille Lesnick, who is going to give an exciting presentation on youth data as we're rounding out the end of the school year. It's been a really eventful year for the OST office as we've finally been able to obtain data from OSSI and DCPS. And you might have checked out your progress reports or youth profiles and seen new data and might not be sure about what it means, how to inform your program partner staff, or how to support the needs of the youth. But data collection is important because it helps promote transparency and helps inform you as the OST grant funded partner to have a quality program that can really meet youth needs. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Camille.
Thank you for the very thorough introduction, Mark. Hey, everyone. So we're here talking about the very exciting topic of youth data. So just to kind of give everyone a roadmap, first I'm going to do an overview of our process, so the data matching process that we do with OSSI and DCPS on behalf of our funded organizations. We'll also talk about lessons learned. So our office has learned quite a bit through this process, even from last year. We'll also discuss some youth data collection best practices. We're also going to do a grantee spotlight with two organizations that have been successful in collecting very accurate data for their students, as reflected in the information we're able to get for those organizations from DCPS and OSSI. And then looking ahead, what this looks like for next year, and then we'll also have time for questions and answers since we are cruising right along. So if you do have a question while I'm going through any of the slides, please don't hesitate to ask, or if you want to save it for the end, I will save time for questions and answers at the end so that we can really try to make sure everyone has a clear understanding. Okay. So just an overview. So in FY24, our office began directly requesting youth data from DCPS and OSSI, and this is via data sharing agreements with each of those agencies. So we are asking on your behalf for that data from DCPS and OSSI, and this is in the hopes that this would streamline things so that you are not having to separately ask for the same information. So then this year in FY25, DeAndre established a regular request schedule with both agencies. And this is kind of aligned to DCPS's quarterly report card dates. There are 5 total requests that we make during the grant program year. So Q1 is capturing that August to October, so that first report card. The 5th request is the one that's going to occur over the summer. So we will send that in July and get the data back in August. And that is to include promotion decisions, so kids getting promoted to the next grade or possibly retained in the same grade. credit recovery, which occurs over the summer and summer school, graduation, and then also it's an opportunity to capture summer only youth because we know that the vast majority of our organizations are year-round programs. And you more likely than not are going to enroll some new youth for your summer program, and we want to make sure that they're captured as well. So data requested by the OST office is outlined in data sharing agreements, and it varies based on where the student is enrolled. So on the next slide, I kind of have it bucketed out so you can see all of the data that we are able to get for students. And I do have it marked on the slide, what we're able to get for DCPS youth, what we're able to get for charter youth, because we are able to get more information directly from DCPS than we are from OSSI for our charter students. So let's look at that. So just looking at the data matching process. So the data entry piece is what you guys do. So you guys get the FERPA consent from the family. You create the youth profile in CitySpan. So that is what organizations are responsible for doing. The rest of this is on us, the OST office. So the OST office submits a data request to OSSI, submits a data request to DCPS for all enrolled youth who have FERPA consent marked as yes in CitySpan. So if you have FERPA consent, that question, and it's a yes, we're submitting those students as part of the request. So then DCPS then send us back youth that they're able to match in their data systems. So then sometimes we may have data issues and our team, our data team, DeAndre merges those files because we get one file from DCPS, one file from OSSI. So we merge the file, clean the file, and then the CitySpan team inputs that data into the grants management system. So then that's when it actually shows up in CitySpan. So then as you notice, or as you have noticed, and as Mark mentioned, the aggregate level data, so the percentages are viewable in the progress report. And that is viewable for any youth that have yes for FERPA consent. If you have the FERPA form uploaded, you should also be able to see individual youth data in their profile. So when you click on their name and look at their profile and scroll down, you should be able to see all of their school information that we are able to obtain from DCPS or OSSI. Just to give you an idea of the timeline, so from the request to the data being in CitySpan is about a 30-day turnaround. And this is something that is kind of outside of our control. The agencies require a 30-day turnaround. So that's as fast as it's going to get. Any questions on the request or the matching process? All right. So moving on to what can we see in CitySpan? So I've outlined below on this slide, you can see all of the data that may be available for matched youth. So if you see a star next to it, it means that we have it, we may have it. You just have to request it from our office directly. So that is really kind of the bigger data set. So like report card grades, transcript grades, some of these things, iReady scores, Dibble scores, some of these things that just can't be captured in CitySpan because it's too much information. We don't want to have to build out a report card in CitySpan. So you can request that information from us. If it has a little plus sign, that means we can only get it from DCPS at this time. So that again is like the report card grades, the transcript grades, and then DCPS also tracks their students' progress toward graduation. There isn't a uniform system across the board for the charter school high schools. So that is something that we can only get through for DCPS. But as you see, a lot of this stuff, like all of the demographic information, all the attendance stuff, and most of the behavior information is available for DCPS and public charter school students if we are able to match them in their databases. And if you have the FERPA forms uploaded, you should be seeing this on their youth profile if we've been able to match them. So there's a lot of ifs there, and I see some hands raised. So I see RJ, you have a question for me? Let's go for it.
Yeah.
It's a quick question. I was wondering about the iReady scores. So are we able to see the students' iReady scores in CitySpan already? And will it give us comparative data? Like, will it be able to show like our book club kids against the school in general? If that
I
makes
would
sense.
I would love comparison data. For the iReady scores, so your first question about iReady scores, so that is something you'd need to request from us because students take iReady multiple times during the year, like beginning of year, mid-year, end of year. So they should have 3 scores. They may have 2, they may have 1, who knows? It was too complicated for that to be in CitySpan, and it only applies to DCPS. So that's something that you can request from us if they are there for each administration. So let's say Johnny student has a beginning of year, middle of year, end of year score, we can share that with you. And we have each score and it says beginning of year, middle of year, end of year, and it has both the composite score as well as the performance level. In terms of the average, I would direct you to the panorama data that DCPS releases, and you can see the school-wide averages for iReady. I would need to double check that and see if that is still included as part of the panorama reports for DCPS. But it previously was there. I'm not sure about Dibbles, but I know that iReady was in the previous iterations of Panorama, which would give you at your site location school, what are kids scoring on this assessment? Any other questions or clarification on this slide? So at the end, we'll talk about how you can request this data. The vast majority of it should be displaying in CitySpan. If you have any questions, you don't know what something means, like this on track for graduation thing for DCPS is like color coded. It's like red 1, orange 1, blue. If you don't know what that means, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we're happy to support you in understanding kind of the data that you have for your youth. So taking this all in, looking at what we have here, I have a question for you guys. That question, so how could this data inform your programming? So based on that information that you could get for your students, what are some things that you as an organization could do with it in your programming? And I'll open that up to the floor. Any ideas or thoughts? Feel free to drop it in the chat. Or say it out loud, either way.
So.
Well, for us, we're looking at this data to see how how impactful our programming is throughout the school year, to see if we're having the successes that we intended on having based on whatever the results are. If we're using comparative data to see what the kids are, how our kids are performing to the other students at the school, it helps us to determine whether or not we should continue with programming at this school. Maybe we need to revise our instructional model, but it helps us to make decisions about what we provide currently and in the future.
I really like that. Yeah. So impact and efficacy of programming. So if I could share, UPO has like an academic focused program. So that would be kind of a core component of why you would be looking at this data. Any other ideas of how you could use this data to inform your programming or inform like outreach or anything?
Yeah, it really does inform changes from year to year. So, as my organization has like the CitySpan attendance viewer, for example, that informs changes within the year. Like this class is not working. Why is not working? You do intervention, still not working. You get rid of that class and you put in a different class. But this end of year data inform changes to the structure of the program the year after, which is we know that in this job you adapt or die. So that's what you do. That helps you not to die. It helps you to adapt.
Right. So again, it's great for planning for next year. So it sounds like planning within the year, but then also what are we doing next year? What are we doing the same next year? What are we doing differently next year? A thing that you could also, since you have kind of through the school year, if you're making a request, if you're looking at it in the middle of the year, you could inform kind of like grouping. If you want to group the kids that all need help that are lower in math, but higher in reading. If you want to group the kids that are lower in reading, higher in math. So then you can do some grouping and do some targeted interventions. Other things that you could use this for, you also have like, you could identify areas where youth may need additional support. You have all of their attendance data, so you could see who are the kids who are just not coming to school, or maybe only coming to school when they have OST. And maybe some truancy support. If you have kids that have a lot of office referrals, maybe, thinking about conflict resolution or, kind of some support in that social emotional area. So you have other areas where you can really kind of think, how can I holistically support this youth while they're with me for, however many hours in the morning, the afternoon, or the weekends. Anyone else? So I have from Haley, help us understand if we're helping students holistically, not just engaging them in our program, but in school in general. So looking at in-school attendance rates. So yeah, so we're of similar minds. So that is definitely something that you could use. Something I would also say is this information is really helpful in developing grant applications because you have concrete numbers that represent the demographics of the youth that you serve, the areas of DC that you serve. And you could use that to apply to grants to really speak to, this is the type of student that we serve. These are the type of outcomes that we have. So this is also something that you as an organization could use in applying for other grant funded opportunities or looking at, oh, maybe this is specific to, like a small food grant or something like that. That could be something that you could use to pitch your organization as a good fit for a grantor. All right. All right, so then just showing you an example of the progress report. So as you can see, at the top, you have the match rate. We also added a match total. And this is so that you can see the number of youth that were matched. Because as we have shared, this is just DCPS and OSSI. So if you're serving students that attend a private school, that are homeschooled, they are excluded from the count. So if you maybe have a mix, you may have a really high match rate, but you may have a lower number of youth that are matched. And then you can see of those youth that were matched, you can see this first column, the proposed, is what you put in your grant application for your OST grant, your MADC grant. And then what you see in the next column is the actual percent. So this second column and the compliance metric, those change throughout the year as we get data from DCPS and OSSI. And so this is kind of a moving target, whereas this proposed percentage does not change because that is what you proposed that you would be serving with your grant funded program. So
Hey,
just
Kim,
showing, yes.
sorry, quick question. This is Simon. Sorry if you mentioned this before or if it's been on another call. Are we gonna receive the list of kids who are incorrectly matched so that we can
Yes,
get
so
back in?
unmatched youth, yes. So we can get you a list of your unmatched youth, and we can get that to you for quarter 4, because we will have that one more request in this summertime, probably in late July. So I can ask DeAndre follow up about getting a list of unmatched youth for your organization. And that is helpful to kind of troubleshoot and see who wasn't showing up in the system and then maybe investigate why. So we can talk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. All right. So now we're moving into lessons learned. So this is where the OST office, we kind of got, and looking at the matched versus unmatched youth last year, to Simon's point, we identified some issues that were causing youth to not match. So the biggest ones were incomplete registration information. So just the registration information that was in CitySpan was just not enough for DCPS or OSSI to match them. The second biggest issue was mismatched school names and types. So for example, you put the Episcopal school, but then when you clicked the type, you accidentally clicked on charter. So the type and the school did not match. So then that was causing an issue with the agencies. The next biggest issue is incomplete student names. So students who maybe have more than one last name or have a hyphenated last name, or they're referred to by a name that is not the same as what's on their school enrollment forms. All of those were causing errors for us when we were trying to match. Then kind of moving down, address inconsistencies. So the address maybe wasn't exactly matching their school enrollment. I know that some organizations provide transportation to their youth. So maybe the parents signed the kid up with grandma's address because grandma is where that kid goes after OST. So then that could be an issue with match rate. Other issues saying, just minor issues with the street address. And then the final kind of major category of why youth couldn't be matched is out of date information. So we know that kids in DC move a lot, especially those that are living in apartments or temporary housing situations where they're doubled up, they're living in a shelter, they're living with a relative. So they move quite a bit throughout the year. They change schools during the school year. And sometimes, when you collect that information in August, by the time it gets to May, that kid could be in a completely different school and a completely different address. So just having some inconsistencies across the board with out of date information. So these are some of the issues. So now we're going to talk more about, how we reacted to that and moving forward, addressing that. So things that we have acted on so to support your ability to match your youth. We implemented some city span changes. So we required fields of information. So you probably noticed this at the beginning of FY25. Another thing we did not allow was rolling over kids from last year to this year. If they rolled over, you did have to update their profile before you could then enroll them. Um, we added some fields so that you could add their school ID. And then we standardized the school list. So we standardized the school list to align to the name that is in the OSSI database for school names. And then we also automated the school type. So I'm sure you probably noticed it this year, or if you enrolled anybody in the spring, when that change was implemented, once you put the school name, you don't have to say the type because that was like a big issue, especially between charter and DCPS. And it was causing us a lot of issues with DCPS because DCPS, even if it had a DCPS name, they were rejecting it if the type said charter. So it was just causing a major issue on our end. So we just resolved it via CitySpan. We're also working on technical support from our office. So we have a one pager related to getting student IDs, using the bulk upload tool. And then we have also updated the CitySpan user guide, and we can send that out after this call along with the presentation materials. So that is just kind of giving people a bigger view of how to use CitySpan, how to troubleshoot things in CitySpan, just to give you guys the tools you need to be able to collect the information. So next I wanted to look at match rates. So I put together a chart, thanks to DeAndre. DeAndre pulled all this data for us of the match rates from last year to this year. So the blue is at the end of FY24. So at the end of FY24, we had quite a few organizations, I think it's 29, that had just 0% match rate, like not a single kid matched. And then you can look at our biggest group, Last year was 26 to 50. And then we had very few organizations that had from 76 to 100% match rate. We're right at 15 organizations total.
Yeah.
So then looking at the Q3 data, which is as of March 2025, is the orange. So you can see we have fewer that are at 0, fewer that are in that lowest quartile, 0 to 25. And now we have, more of our organizations moving toward being at 50% or higher. Just overall in FY24, we had 40% of grantees that had a match rate of less than 25%. And then as of March 2025, you guys brought that number down to 29%. So that is just improvements across the board. And then we're also seeing on the other end an increase of organizations that are getting in these higher quartiles. So like I said, this is as of March 2025. And we know that people don't necessarily have their spring rosters solidified in March of 2025. So you probably added kids since then, and they would be included in that Q4, which was sent at the end of May. And then the summer request, which will be in July. So as long as all of your kids are in CitySpan by July, they will be captured in our data request. And then one thing I will say is once a student is matched, they will continue to match because we will get their IDs and then we put their IDs in CitySpan. So then once it's a match, it's always a match. So thinking back to that issue of youth who move, youth who change schools, youth who, whatever changes during the year, that's not going to impact your match rate because we have them locked in with their student ID. Any questions here? Like I said, just wanted to include this just as a testament to the hard work that you guys have done and just show you kind of that big shift towards better data, higher match rates. And I heard someone. Question? Okay. All right.
Okay, so I'm just making a note.
Okay. Just making sure I don't miss it. Oh, yeah. So yeah, we got a congrats from MICFA. So that congrats goes to everybody. Because it certainly is the work that you guys do and kind of the dedication and improvements that you guys have focused on. And we're only seeing those numbers climb higher. So thank you again. Yay. Okay, so let's shift a little bit to look at data collection best practices. So we'll look at some of the things based on those lessons learned, based on what we're seeing from organizations. So starting from the registration form, some best practices that we have seen and are recommending is requesting the student's name as it appears on their school registration. Parents have a tendency to put what they refer to their own child. This DCPS wants to know what DCPS refers to that child. Paul Public Charter School wants to know what Paul Public Charter School refers to that child. So just updating that question on your forms to just say, provide student's first and last name as it appears on their registration form. Another thing that's helpful is mirroring the required fields in CitySpan. So making sure that what we require is also what you require for it to be complete. Asking for the student's school ID or their USI as an optional question, because like I said, if we can get their school ID, we will be able to match that kid. And then another suggestion, and this has come from conversations I've had with organizations that provide transportation to youth, is having maybe their home address and then a transportation address if that is different. Because like I said, we have aunts, uncles, cousins that help provide childcare, and that may be where the youth goes after OST, but it's not necessarily the address that was included on their school enrollment forms. And I do see I have a question from Daniela. Question.
Thank you, Camille. Yes. I wanted to go back 1 second to including youth school ID or USI. So I think that Mark probably wants to, jump across and strangle me, but we had this conversation with him several times. We really have provided the CPS school ID because that's something that I need to do for my external evaluator. And the match is not that good.
Okay.
And I don't know, it may be because there are all these other factors intervening that when you go to do a crossover of data available, maybe the address is actually wrong. The child's name is misspelled, whatever it is. We were able, through our external evaluator, she had from us see the USI number. So we were able to, Mark helped us to do a bulk upload and our yes, and our match, the match rate went up quite a bit, right, Mark? It was really grew a lot. So I don't know what is about the school ID number. There must be some other factor that when you go to crossover, the information it still doesn't prove eligibility.
We can certainly look into that. And it sounds like the issue was the DCPS ID. So we can look into that specifically and see if it was an issue on our end or if it's an issue on DCPS's end of why those youth weren't matching. But I'm glad that the USI helped to resolve the issue. So LEA is the same as the school ID. Yes. So yes, the LEA ID is the same as the school ID. So for DCPS, the name of it is the Aspen ID. And then each charter school uses their own database. So the names could be different. So school ID, and then, the LEA is just kind of like a term of art. But yes, those are the same thing. Another thing that's really, really helpful is getting consent from the outset. So including your FERPA consent, including your SEO consent on your initial registration packets are going to help you increase the likelihood that you get this information back and get it back in time. It may be helpful. I know that some parents have a lack of trust or maybe fearful about their child's information existing on the internet at large. It may be helpful to explain to the parents that this youth data is not shared publicly. It's not shared in any kind of identifiable manner. It is, CitySpan has very limited access as to who can get into CitySpan, who can view information in CitySpan. This is not information that would ever be made available publicly. Another thing I did want to note here is that if you have youth who are 18 and older, the consent for FERPA needs to come directly from that adult youth. So we do have some modified FERPA consent language, but that is really just dealing with older youth, but keeping those consent forms in your registration packets are going to help to ensure that they actually come back to you in a timely manner. Moving right along. So looking at the IDs. So we talked about this a little bit, including the IDs is very, very helpful. Students who attend public schools in DC have 2 IDs. One is the LEA student ID, also known as the school ID. The other one is the USI. You should only need one, but as Daniela noted, there may be issues where the one is not matching. So just a reminder on the fields, USI is a 10-digit number. It has no letters. It is 10 numbers, and that is assigned by OSSI. And then the LEA ID is from the schools. The DCPS ID is 8 digits long. Charter school IDs, a lot of the time will have a combination of numbers and letters, or they might be longer. So they really vary from school to school. So then the last thing I want to talk about is CitySpan reports. So something I would recommend is once you have your kids registered and enrolled and you just want to go back and spot check, I would recommend running a participant report and then review the information that's been entered. This is especially helpful if you're not the person entering that information. Maybe you have a program associate who's helping with it. So then this way you can look at all of that information in one place, update things, missing, parts of addresses, correcting zip codes, adding IDs. And then as Daniela noted, when you upload, it makes all of the changes at once so that you're not having to go into each individual youth profile. Also, as Simon noted earlier, we are able to generate a list of matched and unmatched youth. So you can look at just the unmatched youth and see what's going on. Why didn't they match? And that may be helpful in kind of reviewing your data and working with staff to update any information that needs to be updated. Okay. I've talked too much. So moving on to our grantee spotlight, we have two organizations with us today that we wanted to spotlight for their data practices. Sitar Arts Center and then the Washington Tennis and Education Foundation. So if I can get you guys to join, turn the camera on, unmute yourself.
Yeah, so if we're going to share all our OST data.
Our Sitar and WTEF here.
Yes, hello.
Hi. All right. Hi. So we have Haley from Sitar, and then who do we have from Washington Tennis?
Janelle Nichols, hello.
Hi. I just can't see you, so shooting in the dark. So if I could get each of you guys to introduce yourself and your organization.
Yeah.
Sure. My name is Haley. I'm the registration coordinator at Sitar Arts Center. We are an after-school arts program for youth who are from families that bring in less than 60% of the median income of DC. Our mission is that 80% of our students will be from that group in our student population. And we work to make sure that our students have a nice, safe, fun place that they can come to after school.
And I'm Janelle Nichols, the Director of Programs and Partnerships for the Washington Tennis and Education Foundation. And we provide after school and summer programming that's, of course, tennis and education, both in schools and at our East Campus, which is located in Ward 7. So primarily our schools are in Wards 5 through 8. And then the students we enroll in our East Campus program are primarily from Wards 7 and 8. So we do, tennis instruction, but also academic support.
Thank you. Thank you. So if I could just ask, what does your registration process for your OST programs, what does that look like for each of your organizations?
For us, the current form of registration that we use is we have an online parent portal, which we provide the link to and create accounts for parents to be able to access. In that portal, they're able to upload any paperwork that we requested them, as well as complete their student update, which includes all of the information we need for SAO and OST, as well as any medical concerns that we need to be aware of, if there's any special needs that the parents would like to tell us to help us better support their students, and the signing of waivers for participation in our programming. During the school year, it also has the option to be able to go in and select which specific classes our students are interested in. And during the summer camp experience, we use that section on the back end to enroll them into the system. Within that, it is not only purely online. We also we have a email address that is solely for registration that I check every day to make sure that we're answering questions and providing support for people, as well as they're able to give us a call and I'm available, or make appointments for in-person if they need extra technical support.
All right. What about Washington Tennis?
So we actually use JotForm. So we just create a form, an enrollment form through JotForm and just as you mentioned earlier, actually, Ms. Camille, we over time have actually just aligned our fields in the form to, align with what city span, like what you all are asking. So it's changed, it's evolved over the course of the years to make sure it just aligns with everything that we're required to submit here and include in the student profile. So we use JotForm, we send it out electronically to our families at the beginning of each program period, so at the beginning of the school year, as well as at the beginning of summer camp. So that's pretty straightforward in that respect. We used to, when I first started WTEF, which was a long time ago now, it was actually paper, all done via paper. But, of course, that's, we come across like some illegible handwriting and things like that. So then some things might not be translated, uploaded properly. So definitely moving everything to being digital has helped tremendously in that respect.
Awesome. So I guess for both of you guys, like lessons, I guess, what are your lessons learned? Anything that you've adapted? It sounds like shifting from paper to electronic forms was a big shift, but any other ways you've adapted, things you've implemented, or kind of practices you've looked at to in the interest of working on match rate and focusing on matching your youth within the school's database?
For matching specifically, we realized that our system includes nicknames in the full name that we were uploading student information to. So we went in and removed nicknames for any students that were marked as having not been matched in the fall based on the report given, as well as double checking that birth dates were correct and cross-referencing if any students have a hyphenated or second last name, since we have a high population of students likely to have more than one last name. We would do this by checking other paperwork that we have from them in the past in case they signed with a different name before, and also comparing sibling names. So if one student had Reyes only as a last name and another had hyphenated Amaya Reyes, then we would put that in instead.
Yeah, some similar practices as well. Definitely, kind of aligning like sibling names because, sometimes parents will do that, kind of put last names differently in that respect. So we'll make sure those are the same. But in JotForm too, I think what's helped in a big way is obviously, I think you can do this with lots of platforms, but making certain fields required. So there's no option for them to skip through that. And of course, with a lot of form systems, like date of birth has to be put in a certain way. So we know for sure it's like the month and the date, the month and the date don't get mixed around. So we can ensure that that's correct and accurate for those students. I think those are primarily what we've done.
I mean, those were kind of the questions I had. Is there anything else you want to share about kind of your data practices or anything in that realm?
I do want to note we did use JotForm before we made the portal system. We also rather liked it, and it was useful for us during that time period.
I appreciate you all.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for sharing. My apologies for running way over time, but we really want to thank you for joining and thank you for your, attention to this and prioritizing this in terms of your practices as organizations. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So looking ahead to FY26. So if you feel just so inspired from this office hours and you want your youth data, you can request it from the OST office. We did create a request form, and that is just so that we can centralize those and make sure that we're doing our best to respond to those in a timely manner, because right now we're kind of getting requests via email, requests on phone calls. DeAndre's getting requests, we're getting requests as the GMS. And we just want to ensure that there's one centralized place where we're managing those. If you're not sure how to run reports, like running the participant report, you're not sure how to review youth data, you get it back and you don't know what it means. We have updated the City Span user guide. Your GMS are happy to work with you and look at that. And then as a reminder, we have our bi-weekly OST data office hours, which are an opportunity to really kind of dig in, ask those questions, and look deeply at the data that's both in City Span and that is now available through the OST office from the education agencies. And then I have a question, how long does it take for the system to match a student? So like I said, from the time that we send the request to when we get the data back, is 30 days. We can request a list of matched versus unmatched youth from DCPS and OSSI, and that is just shorter time frame, but I would direct that question to DeAndre in terms of the specifics for match rate or how long it takes to match. But I would say that the whole matching process is a 30-day process. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? I can tell that we're all just wowed by youth data. So I do want to be respectful of your time. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm sure you will get the presentation as well as the mentioned materials from this meeting, and it also was recorded so you can watch it later on YouTube. Thank you everyone for joining this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you all for participating today. Please look out for forthcoming correspondence. And huge shout out to Camille for that fantastic presentation. Camille's got a wealth of student data knowledge, so definitely follow up if you have any questions. And shout out to Sitar Arts Center in Washington and Education Foundation for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Appreciate all your questions too.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
I do overwatch. The young